My boyfriend deleted every photo of my dead father from my phone, then told me I was emotionally taken up by another man. When I confronted him, he said, "I don't deserve to date someone who's still obsessed with a ghost." I just stared at him. That was 3 months ago. This morning, he wishes he could take it all back. I first kissed my boyfriend when he was 7 years old and I was 8. And after years of awkward hand-holding, homemade dates, and a lot of tension, we finally ended up together. He literally knew everything about me and still loved me, which made me love him even more. There was only one red flag, and that was his jealousy. Except, it seemed normal at first. He'd simply glare at any guy who checked me out, or clench his fists whenever someone tried to catcall me. It wasn't until I turned 21 that things really started taking a turn, because that's when my dad died. At first, Trevor was there for me more than anyone else. He went to my dad's favorite restaurant and secretly learned how to cook his signature order. And when I had to take time off from work, he paid me for the hours I missed so I wouldn't have to worry about money. But one thing people don't realize about grief is that it never goes away. You just get stronger. But that strength takes time to develop. And that's why I spent my dad's 1-month death anniversary begging Trevor not to be mad at me for crying. From there, our relationship plummeted. Every time I brought up my dad, he'd roll his eyes or ask me why I was still talking about a man who wasn't him. Or one time he came over while I was on my period and ignored me until I forced myself to act like I was completely fine. 2 hours after he left, I saw he had turned down every picture frame in the apartment that had my dad in it. And at the time, I knew damn well what he was doing was wrong, but it was simply too painful to leave, because all of my friends had stopped talking to me to give me space, which really just meant they didn't want to deal with me. And because my dad was the black sheep of the family, none of my family members reached out to me, not even once. So without my boyfriend, I would have been completely alone. But of course, things only got worse. One time while I was crying my eyes out, he took my phone and told me it was to message my boss to call in sick. But 5 minutes later, he was still drafting the message. And when I leaned over, I caught Trevor deleting every photo of my dad from my camera roll. And he had removed them from the deleted folder too. I didn't even say anything, just looked at him like he was insane. "I don't deserve to date someone who's emotionally taken up by another man," he said, completely straight-faced. I swear I thought he was pranking me, but then he left and slammed the door on the way out. It took 2 hours of me apologizing for us to finally be okay again. It was around this time that I started getting desperate, antsy. I felt like I needed a way to feel like my dad was still with me, so I took up motorbiking. It was something my dad always used to do, and I knew he'd be proud of me if he saw how good I was. I kept it a secret from Trevor. I told myself it was so I could surprise him, but deep down, I knew that if I told him, he'd make me quit. But the guilt of keeping a secret got too much. So one day, I sent him a selfie of me on my motorbike and said, hey, surprise, your GF is even cooler than you thought." But instead of hyping me up, or even just replying with nice, he got mad. Like, really mad. "Let me get this straight. You're wearing tight gear and posing on a bike while in a relationship? That is disgusting." "I was just posing. I just wanted to surprise you," I responded. "Oh, so you're choosing a damn bike over my comfort now?" I didn't respond, mainly because I was crying too hard to type. Half an hour later, there was a knock on the door. Guess who it was? Trevor. He greeted me with a hug. It was the most physical affection he had given me in weeks. "I'm sorry I haven't been there for you, baby. Let me make it up to you." It was the words I had dreamed of hearing. We proceeded to have the most passionate lovemaking session of all time. I took a nap afterwards, and when I woke up, he was beside me, giving me a foot rub. It was perfect. He didn't even bring up the motorbike fiasco. Well, fast forward to the next morning. I decided to ride my bike to college. Everything was fine, until I got to the red light at the bottom of a small hill. I braked, except the bike kept moving. My heart was pounding in my chest. When I realized my bike wasn't going to stop, I swerved hard and held on for dear life. Luckily, I ended up in hospital, because there, they told me my main injury was a sprained wrist. But the more I thought about it, the more things didn't make sense. Until I went to the mechanic. When I showed Pablo my bike, his face was drained of color. "I've been working here for 10 years, and I'm sorry, Mama, but your brakes were cut." My mouth completely dried up. Suddenly, everything made sense. Trevor coming over, the nap, the change of heart. I immediately texted him. "Hey babe, I just found out about the brakes. Thank you. You always know just when to push me and help me move on. I'm glad you finally came around. I love you," he responded. A smirk was plastered on my face, because I had that idiot right where I wanted him. I waited until I got home to have my breakdown. I sat on my bathroom floor for hours, just staring at the wall. The guy I'd loved since I was a kid had tried to unalive me. He actually cut my brake lines. Who does that? I kept thinking about all those crime shows where they say most women are unalived by someone they know. Never thought I'd be one of those statistics. After my pity party, I got up and made a plan. First, I needed proof. I still had the text where he basically admitted to cutting my brakes, but I wanted more. I remembered my dad's old GoPro in the closet. Dad used to mount it on his helmet when he went riding. I dug it out and made sure it still worked. It did. The battery was low, but it had enough charge for what I needed. The next day, I invited Trevor over for dinner. I acted all lovey-dovey, like I was totally fine with him trying to unaliving me. He seemed to buy it. While he was there, I casually mentioned I was thinking about selling my bike. "Really? That's great, babe. I think that's the right decision," he said, looking so relieved it made me sick. His shoulders visibly relaxed, and he even reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Yeah, I just need to fix it first." "The mechanic said there might be some other issues besides the brakes," I said, watching his face carefully. His eye twitched, just slightly, but I caught it. "What did the mechanic say exactly?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just that the brake line was damaged. He's going to check everything else too," I said with a shrug. Trevor nodded and changed the subject. After dinner, he left earlier than usual, saying he had an early class. I knew he was freaking out. The next morning, I set up the GoPro in my living room, hidden on a bookshelf. Then I called Trevor and asked him to come over, saying I was feeling really down about my dad again. He arrived looking annoyed, but trying to hide it. "What's going on?" he asked, not even hugging me hello. "I found some old videos of my dad on his bike. I thought maybe we could watch them together. It might help me process," I said, looking sad and vulnerable. His face darkened. "I thought we were moving past this. You said you were selling the bike." "I am, but I still miss my dad. Don't you understand?" I asked, letting my voice crack a little. "Your dad is gone, Melissa. He's been gone for months. When are you going to stop obsessing over him?" Trevor snapped. I flinched, partly for show and partly because it still hurt to hear him talk about my dad that way. "Why does it bother you so much that I miss my father?" I asked quietly. "Because you're my girlfriend. Your loyalty should be to me, not some dead guy who can't even appreciate it," he yelled, getting in my face. His breath was hot against my skin, and I could see a vein pulsing in his forehead. I backed up, genuinely scared now. "Trevor, you're scaring me." "Good. Maybe you'll finally listen. I'm sick of competing with a ghost." He grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks. His fingers dug into my flesh, and I knew there would be bruises tomorrow. "You cut my brakes," I said, staring him right in the eyes. "You tried to unalive me because I was riding a motorcycle like my dad used to." He let go of my arm like it burned him. "What? Number, that's crazy. I have the text, Trevor. You admitted it," I said calmly. His face went through about 5 emotions in 3 seconds. "That's not what I meant. I was just glad you were moving on from the bike thing." "So you didn't cut my brakes?" I asked. "Of course not. What kind of person do you think I am?" he said, looking offended. I walked over to my phone and pulled up our text exchange. "Then what did you mean by this?" I showed him the screen. He read it and his face went pale. That's not, you're twisting my words, am I? Because Pablo at the shop said someone deliberately cut my brake line, and the only person who knew about my bike and had access to it was you," I said. "That mechanic is lying. He probably did it himself to charge you more money," Trevor shouted, his voice rising to a pitch I'd never heard before. I shook my head. "I don't believe you." "Fine. So what if I did? You were being stupid and reckless. You could have gotten yourself unalived anyway. I was trying to scare you into stopping," he yelled. There it was, the confession. I felt sick. "You could have unalived me," I whispered. "But I didn't. You're fine. Just a sprained wrist. And now you're going to sell the bike. So it all worked out," he said, like this was totally reasonable. I backed away from him. "I think you should leave. Melissa, come on. Don't be dramatic," he said, reaching for me. "Get out, now, or I'm calling the police," I said, holding up my phone. His face changed. The mask dropped completely. "You ungrateful little beach. After everything I've done for you. Fine. Have fun being alone." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. It was a photo of my dad and me at my elevated school graduation. I waited until I heard his car drive away before I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. I checked the GoPro. It had captured everything. His confession, the threats, grabbing my arm. I had him. But what now? I wasn't sure if what I had was enough for the police. And even if it was, did I want to go through all that? Press charges against the guy I'd known my whole life? The thought made me feel sick. I decided to sleep on it. The next morning, I woke up to 37 texts from Trevor. They started with anger, then moved to apologies, then to threats, then back to apologies. Classic Trevor roller coaster. I ignored them all. Instead, I called my dad's best friend, Uncle Mike. He wasn't really my uncle, but he'd been around my whole life. I hadn't talked to him since the funeral because it hurt too much, but I needed help. "Melissa, is everything okay?" he asked when he picked up. "No," I said, and then I told him everything. Uncle Mike listened to everything without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. "I'm coming over," he finally said. "Don't go anywhere. Don't talk to Trevor." I agreed and hung up. While waiting for Uncle Mike, I backed up the GoPro footage to my laptop and a USB drive. I wasn't taking any chances. I also took photos of the bruises forming on my arm where Trevor had grabbed me. They were turning a nasty purple color already. Uncle Mike arrived about an hour later. He looked older than I remembered from the funeral. His beard had more gray in it, and the lines around his eyes were deeper. He gave me a long hug when I opened the door. "Your dad would be so mad right now," he said, shaking his head. "He never liked that kid." "I know," I said quietly. I should have listened to him. Uncle Mike sat down at my kitchen table while I made coffee. "So what's your plan?" he asked. I shrugged. "I don't know. I have the video and the texts. I could go to the police, but what? But it's Trevor. We've known each other since we were kids. His mom still sends me birthday cards," I said, feeling stupid even as the words came out of my mouth. Uncle Mike gave me a look that reminded me so much of my dad it hurt. "Melissa, he tried to unalive you. I don't care if you've known him since the womb. He's dangerous." Deep down, I knew he was right. But the thought of actually going through with pressing charges made my stomach turn. Trevor had been my whole world for so long. How do you just throw that away? "Let me think about it," I said. "For now, I just want to make sure he stays away from me." Uncle Mike didn't look happy, but he nodded. "Fair enough, but you're not staying here alone. Either you come stay with me and Sharon, or I'm camping out on your couch." I smiled for what felt like the first time in days. "I'll pack a bag." I ended up staying with Uncle Mike and his wife Sharon for a week. Their house was on the other side of town, far from my apartment and far from Trevor's place. It felt good to be somewhere safe, somewhere Trevor couldn't find me. Sharon was amazing. She didn't ask too many questions, just made sure I ate and slept and took care of myself. She even helped me find a therapist who specialized in damage and abusive relationships. I had my first appointment 3 days after moving in with them. Dr. Patel was a small woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "What you're experiencing is very common," she told me during our first session. "Leaving an abusive relationship is one of the hardest things a person can do, especially when there's a long history. But I feel so stupid. I admitted. The signs were all there. My dad saw it. Why didn't I? Because abusers are very good at what they do, she said simply. They isolate you, make you dependent on them, and erode your self-confidence until you can't trust your own judgment anymore. That hit home hard. Trevor had done exactly that. After my dad died, he'd become my whole support system. Of course, I couldn't imagine leaving him. He'd made sure I had nowhere else to go. Meanwhile, Trevor was blowing up my phone. I had blocked his number, but he kept finding ways to contact me. New phone numbers, email addresses. He even sent me a message on LinkedIn, which I didn't even know I had. I showed Uncle Mike some of the messages. I'm worried about you. Please just talk to me, read one. I know I messed up, but I love you. We can fix this, said another. If you don't respond, I'm going to call the police and report you missing, threatened a third. Uncle Mike's face got redder with each message. This kid needs to be stopped, he muttered. I nodded, finally accepting what I needed to do. I'm going to the police tomorrow. The next morning, Uncle Mike drove me to the police station. I brought my laptop with the GoPro footage, my phone with the text messages, and photos of the bruises on my arm. I was nervous as hell, but I knew it was the right thing to do. The officer who took my statement was named Officer Clark. She was probably in her 40s, with short blonde hair and a serious expression. She listened carefully as I told my story, taking notes and asking occasional questions. When I showed her the video, her expression darkened. This is a clear confession, she said. And the physical attack is on camera too. We have more than enough to apprehension him. I felt a weird mix of relief and dread. What happens now? We'll bring him in for questioning. Based on what you've shown me, we'll likely charge him with attack and attempted unaliving. You should also consider getting a restraining order, she explained. I nodded, feeling numb. Officer Clark must have noticed because her expression softened slightly. You're doing the right thing, she said. Many people in your situation never find the courage to come forward. After filing the report, Uncle Mike took me back to his house. I felt drained, like I'd run a marathon. Sharon made me tea and a sandwich, but I could barely eat. All I could think about was Trevor being apprehended. What would he say? Would he deny everything? Would he hate me even more now? I got my answer a few hours later when Officer Clark called. We brought Trevor Johnson in for questioning, she told me. Based on the evidence and his responses, we've charged him with attack and attempted unaliving. He's being held without bail for now. What did he say? I couldn't help asking. There was a pause on the line. He denied cutting your brake lines at first, but when confronted with the text messages, he changed his story. He claimed he only meant to scare you, not hurt you. But the intent doesn't matter. What he did was still attempted unaliving. After hanging up, I sat on the guest bed in Uncle Mike's house and cried. Not for Trevor, but for myself. For all the years I'd wasted loving someone who could do this to me, for ignoring my dad's warnings, for everything. The next few days passed in a blur. I gave more statements to the police. I met with a prosecutor named Ms. Flores, who explained the charges against Trevor and what to expect going forward. I got a temporary restraining order that would become permanent after a hearing. The evidence is very strong, Ms. Flores assured me. The video confession alone is damning. Add in the text messages and the mechanic's statement about the brake lines being deliberately cut, and it's a solid case. I nodded, trying to take it all in. What kind of sentence would he get? If convicted on all charges, he's looking at a minimum of 10 years, she said. Possibly more. 10 years. The thought made me dizzy. Trevor would be in his 30s when he got out. Our whole lives would have passed by. A week after Trevor's apprehension, I decided it was time to go back to my apartment. Uncle Mike and Sharon had been amazing, but I couldn't hide forever. I needed to reclaim my life. Are you sure? Sharon asked, concern written all over her face. You know you can stay as long as you need. I'm sure, I said, hugging her. Trevor's in prison. The restraining order is in place. I need to start putting my life back together. Uncle Mike insisted on coming with me to check the apartment first. I was glad he did, because when we arrived, it was clear someone had been there. Nothing was stolen, but things were moved around. Pictures were turned face down again. My clothes were strewn across the bedroom floor. Trevor couldn't have done this, I said, my heart racing. He's in prison. Uncle Mike frowned, looking around. Could be his friends or family. Do they have a key? I shook my head. No, but I suddenly remembered that Trevor had made a copy of my key months ago. He could have given his key to someone. We called the police, and Officer Clark came back with another officer. They took photos and dusted for fingerprints, but didn't seem optimistic about finding anything. Change your locks, Officer Clark advised before leaving, and consider getting a security system. I did both that same day. Uncle Mike knew a locksmith who came right away, and I ordered a simple security camera that connected to my phone. I wasn't taking any chances. That night, alone in my apartment for the first time in weeks, I jumped at every sound. The new locks and security camera helped, but I still felt exposed, vulnerable. I kept thinking about how someone, probably one of Trevor's friends, had been in my space, touching my things. I barely slept. The next morning, I had 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemails. I blocked the number and got ready for class. I had missed enough school already. Campus felt different now. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see Trevor even though I knew he was in prison. In my psychology class, I caught a guy staring at me. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away. Was he just a random guy or one of Trevor's friends? I couldn't tell anymore. After class, I hurried to my car. As I approached, I noticed something under the windshield wiper, a piece of paper. My heart started pounding as I got closer. It was a note, folded in half. With shaking hands, I opened it. I know what you did. Trevor didn't deserve this. Watch your back. I dropped the note like it had burned me. Looking around wildly, I couldn't see anyone watching me. The parking lot was half full of students coming and going, none paying any attention to me. I took a photo of the note, then carefully picked it up using a tissue from my bag. I didn't know if the police could get fingerprints from it, but I wasn't going to risk smudging any evidence. Back in my car, doors locked, I called Officer Clark. She answered on the 3rd ring. Someone left a threatening note on my car, I told her, trying to keep my voice steady. And I think someone's been calling me from different numbers. Where are you now? She asked. her voice immediately alert. In my car at the campus parking lot. Stay there. I'm sending a patrol car. 10 minutes later, a police car pulled up next to mine. 2 officers I hadn't met before took my statement and the note, which I'd put in a Ziploc bag from my lunch. We'll add this to the case file, one of them said. In the meantime, be extra vigilant. Travel with friends when possible. Keep your phone charged and ready to call 911. Great advice, except I didn't really have friends anymore. Most had drifted away during my relationship with Trevor, and the few who remained had disappeared when my dad died and I became the sad girl. I called Uncle Mike again. I think Trevor's friends are harassing me, I told him. That's it, he said firmly. You're coming back to stay with us. Part of me wanted to argue, to insist I could handle this on my own, but the truth was, I was scared. Okay, I agreed. That afternoon, I packed another bag and headed back to Uncle Mike and Sharon's house. As I was leaving my apartment, I noticed a car parked across the street, a blue Honda. It looked like the one Trevor's best friend Elliot drove. When I stared at it, the car suddenly pulled away from the curb and drove off. At Uncle Mike's house, I told him about the car. I'm pretty sure it was Elliot's. He and Trevor have been friends since middle school. Uncle Mike's face darkened. I'm calling the police again. This is harassment. The police took another report, but said there wasn't much they could do without proof that Elliot was actually stalking me. The car driving away isn't enough, Officer Clark explained when she called me back, but we'll keep an eye out for it near your apartment. The next day, I got an email from Ms. Flores, the prosecutor. Trevor's attorney has reached out about a possible plea deal, she wrote. He would plead guilty to attack and reckless endangerment in exchange for dropping the attempted unaliving charge. This would mean a sentence of 3 to 5 years instead of 10 plus. Please call me to discuss. I stared at the email for a long time. Part of me wanted Trevor to get the maximum sentence possible. He had tried to unalive me. He deserved to be in prison for a decade. But another part of me just wanted this all to be over. A plea deal would mean no trial, no having to testify, no dragging this out for months or years. I called Ms. Flores and we talked it through. It's ultimately your decision, she said. The evidence is strong enough that we could go to trial and likely win. But trials are unpredictable, and they can be very hard on victims. What would you do? I asked her. She paused. Professionally, I can't advise you either way, but I will say that 3 to 5 years is still a significant sentence. And with a guilty plea, there's no chance of him being found not guilty at trial. I thought about it overnight. In the morning, I called her back. I'll agree to the plea deal, I said. I just want this to be over. I understand, she said. I'll let his attorney know. The relief I felt after making that decision was enormous. No trial, no testifying, no having to face Trevor in court and relive everything. He would go to prison, and I could start to move on. Or so I thought. 2 days later, I was at Uncle Mike's house when my phone rang. It was Ms. Flores. Trevor's rejected the plea deal, she said without preamble. He's decided to take his chances at trial. My stomach dropped. What? Why? His attorney didn't say. But this means we're moving forward with all charges, including attempted unaliving. The trial date will be set at the next hearing. After hanging up, I sat on the guest bed, feeling numb. Why would Trevor reject the deal? It made no sense. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Was he just being stubborn? Or did he have some plan I couldn't see? That night, I had a nightmare about Trevor. In the dream, he was standing over my bed, watching me sleep. When I woke up, gasping for air, I could almost feel his presence in the room. It took me several minutes to convince myself I was alone and safe. The next morning, Sharon made pancakes for breakfast. She and Uncle Mike were trying so hard to make things normal, to give me a safe space. I appreciated it more than I could say. I was thinking, Sharon said as we ate, maybe you should consider transferring to another school. A fresh start somewhere Trevor and his friends can't find you. I'd thought about it too. But that would mean he wins, I said. He already took so much from me. I don't want to give up my education too. Sharon nodded. I understand. Just know it's an option if things get worse. After breakfast, I checked my email and found a message from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was simply, watch. With a sense of dread, I opened it. It contained a video attachment. Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. It was footage of me, walking to class, getting in my car, entering Uncle Mike's house. Someone had been following me, filming me, for days. The last clip showed me through my apartment window, changing clothes. My blood ran cold. Whoever took this had been right outside my window, watching me in my most private moments. At the end of the video, text appeared on screen. Drop the charges or everyone sees this. And worse. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, Uncle Mike was standing by my laptop, his face pale. What the hell is this? He demanded. Someone's been stalking me, I whispered. They want me to drop the charges against Trevor. Uncle Mike immediately called the police. Officer Clark came to the house herself this time, along with a tech specialist who took my laptop to analyze the email and video. This is serious, Officer Clark said. Stalking, voyeurism, blackmail. We're going to find who did this. It has to be one of Trevor's friends, I said. Probably Elliot. Officer Clark nodded. We'll bring him in for questioning. In the meantime, we need to move you somewhere safer. This address has been compromised. I looked at Uncle Mike and Sharon. I'm so sorry. I've put you both in danger too. Sharon came over and hugged me. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. The police arranged for me to stay at a hotel under a different name. Uncle Mike insisted on paying for it, despite my protests. Your dad would haunt me forever if I let anything happen to you, he said, trying to lighten the mood. The hotel was nice enough, but I felt isolated. The police advised me not to go to class for a few days, not to post on social media, not to contact anyone who might tell Trevor's friends where I was. Basically, I was in hiding. On my second day at the hotel, Officer Clark called with an update. We questioned Elliot Barnes, she said. He denied everything, but we got a warrant for his phone and computer. The tech team is going through them now. Do you think he's the one who's been stalking me? I asked. It's too early to say for sure, but he's our prime suspect. He and Trevor are like brothers, according to everyone we've talked to. I remembered how Elliot had always been in Trevor's shadow. Whatever Trevor wanted, Elliot would make happen. If Trevor told him to follow me, to threaten me, to try to scare me into dropping the charges, Elliot would do it without question. Later that day, I got a call from Ms. Flores. The defense has requested a bail hearing, she told told me. They're arguing that Trevor isn't a flight risk and should be released until trial. He can't get out, I said, panic rising in my throat. He tried to unalive me, and now someone's stalking me, threatening me. I know, she said soothingly. I'm going to fight this hard. The new stalking evidence actually helps us make the case that he's dangerous, even from prison. He's clearly orchestrating harassment against you. The bail hearing was scheduled for the following week. Ms. Flores assured me I wouldn't need to attend, but I wanted to. I needed to see Trevor, to remind myself that he was real, and not the monster my nightmares had built him into. Uncle Mike insisted on coming with me. The morning of the hearing, he picked me up from the hotel, and we drove to the courthouse together. I was nervous, my hands shaking as we went through security. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Trevor was already there, sitting next to his attorney. He looked different, thinner, paler. When he saw me walk in, his eyes widened. For a split second, I saw something like hope on his face. Then his expression hardened into something cold and unreadable. I sat as far from him as possible, with Uncle Mike between us like a shield. The hearing began, with Trevor's attorney arguing that he had strong community ties, no prior criminal record, and wasn't a flight risk. He even suggested that I had misinterpreted Trevor's actions and words. Ms. Flores countered with the evidence, the video confession, the text messages, the mechanic's statement about the deliberately cut brake lines. She also brought up the recent stalking and blackmail attempts. While we haven't yet proven Mr. Johnson is directly responsible for this harassment, it began immediately after his apprehension, and is clearly intended to intimidate the victim into dropping charges, she argued. This demonstrates that even from prison, the defendant poses a danger to Ms. Anderson. The judge, an older man with thick glasses, listened to both sides before making his decision. Bail is denied, he said firmly. The defendant will remain in custody until trial. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Trevor wouldn't be getting out. I was safe, at least from him directly. As we were leaving the courtroom, I made the mistake of looking back. Trevor was staring at me with such hatred it made me physically recoil. Uncle Mike put his arm around my shoulders and hurried me out. He can't hurt you, Uncle Mike reminded me as we walked to the car. He's staying locked up. But we both knew Trevor didn't need to be physically present to hurt me. He had friends on the outside who were willing to do his dirty work. That night, back at the hotel, I got a text from an unknown number. You think you're safe? Think again. Drop the charges or things get worse. I forwarded it to Officer Clark and blocked the number. An hour later, another text from a different number. We know where you are. Room 412, nice hotel. My blood ran cold. They knew exactly where I was staying, down to the room number. I called Officer Clark immediately. Don't panic, she said, though I could hear the concern in her voice. I'm sending officers to the hotel right now. Pack your things. We're moving you. I threw my belongings into my bag with shaking hands. True to her word, 2 police officers arrived within minutes. They escorted me to their car and drove me to a different hotel on the other side of town. How did they find me? I asked one of the officers as we drove. We're not sure yet, he admitted, but we're investigating everyone who had access to that information. The new hotel was less nice than the first, but I didn't care. All I wanted was to be somewhere Trevor's friends couldn't find me. The next morning, Officer Clark called with news. We've apprehended Elliot Barnes, she said. The tech team found evidence on his computer linking him to the stalking and blackmail. He had the video of you, and his phone GPS places him outside your apartment and Uncle Mike's house on the dates in question. Relief washed over me. So it's over? He can't bother me anymore? Elliot's in custody, but we're still investigating whether anyone else was involved. Trevor had other friends who might be willing to help him. She was right to be cautious. That afternoon, I got an email from another unknown address. This one contained photos of me at the courthouse, entering with Uncle Mike. The message was simple. We're still watching. I forwarded it to Officer Clark, feeling defeated. Would this ever end? How many of Trevor's friends were out there, willing to terrorize me on his behalf? 2 days later, there was a breakthrough. Officer Clark called, sounding excited. We've got him. The emails were sent from Trevor's mother's IP address. We just executed a search warrant at her house and found evidence that she's been helping coordinate the harassment campaign. I was stunned. I had known Trevor's mom, Patricia, since I was a kid. She had always been kind to me, or so I thought. Trevor's mom? Really? Really? She's being brought in for questioning now. And we found something else. A journal where Trevor detailed his plans to get rid of you if you didn't stop grieving your father. It goes back months. This wasn't a one-time impulse. He'd been planning it. I felt sick. All those months when I thought Trevor was just being insensitive about my grief, he had actually been plotting to unalive me if I didn't get over it fast enough. We're adding the journal to the evidence for trial, Officer Clark continued. It strengthens the case for premeditation. After hanging up, I sat on the hotel bed, trying to process everything. Trevor had planned to unalive me. His mother had helped harass me afterward. How had I never seen this side of them? Had they always been this way? Or had something changed? The next few days were a whirlwind. Patricia Johnson was charged with stalking, harassment, and witness intimidation. Elliot was charged with similar offenses, plus voyeurism for the window video. Trevor remained in prison, now with even more evidence against him. Ms. Flores called to update me on the case. With the new evidence, especially Trevor's journal, his attorney has approached us about a plea deal again, she said. This time, he's willing to plead guilty to all charges, including attempted unaliving. The only negotiation is on sentencing. What are they offering? I asked. 15 years, with possibility of parole after 10, she said. Given the premeditation evidence, it's a reasonable offer. If we go to trial, he could get more, but trials are always unpredictable. I thought about it. 15 years. Trevor would be in his late 30s when he got out. I would have a whole life built by then. Career, maybe a family. The thought of accepting the plea deal and putting this all behind me was tempting. I'll take it, I decided. As long as his mom and Elliot also plead guilty. I'll make that a condition of the deal. Ms. Flores agreed. 2 weeks later, it was done. Trevor, Patricia, and Elliot all pleaded guilty to their respective charges. Trevor got 15 years. Patricia got 3 years for her role in the harassment. Elliot got 5 years for the stalking, blackmail, and voyeurism. I watched Trevor's plea hearing via video link from Ms. Flores' office. I didn't want to be in the same room as him, but I needed to see him admit what he'd done. When the judge asked if he wanted to make a statement, Trevor looked directly at the camera. "I'm sorry," he said flatly. "I never meant to hurt Melissa. I just wanted her to move on and be happy with me." It wasn't a real apology. He was still making it about him, still acting like his intentions somehow excused his actions. But I didn't need his remorse. I just needed him gone from my life. After the hearing, Ms. Flores turned off the video link and looked at me. "It's over," she said simply. "They can't hurt you anymore." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Relief, certainly, but also sadness for the relationship I thought I had, for the Trevor I thought I knew, and fear, would I ever be able to trust anyone again? As if reading my mind, Ms. Flores added, "The restraining orders are permanent. When they eventually get out, they legally can't come near you or contact you." "Thank you," I said, "for everything." That evening, I moved back into my apartment. Uncle Mike had hired a security company to install a better system. Cameras, motion sensors, the works. It made me feel safer, knowing I could see if anyone approached my door. I sat on my couch, looking around at my space. It was mine again. No Trevor, no fear, just me and my memories of my dad, which I could now honor without anyone trying to erase them. I picked up a photo of my dad that had been face down for so long. In it, he was sitting on his motorcycle, grinning at the camera.